session number 3, YouTube audio. Again, as some of you know, we taught a class last year called Month with the Mac. This year I changed it to More with the Mac because I believe you can get more out of your Mac than any other operating system. I'm not going to name names, but you know what others are out there. But most of the stuff that we taught last year is still relevant. And Trainer Matt did such an excellent job, I don't see no reason to do it over, especially when he touches on certain points that that need to be targeted. I will see you at the end and go over the system preferences. But right now, let's jump right in with Trainer Matt talking about the dock, the desktop, launchpad, and some keyboard shortcuts.
Mac OS basics. All right, folks, the desktop. Now, in that other platform that we don't like to talk about, you have a desktop. And it's kind of the starting point where everything else happens. You can put different things on your desktop, and maybe some things come standard. Well, in Mac OS, the same thing is true. In Mac OS, you have a desktop, and you can put different things on it if you want to. Whether or not you do is personal preference. You still can have that Macintosh HD on your desktop if you want to. You can have internal hard drives on your desktop, or you can hide them. And if you hide them, then you don't have to see them there, and there's other ways of getting to those apps. When you hide them, you can still get to them if you need them. There are other things you can show or hide on your desktop, like, for example, external hard drives or external disks. And you can also check CDs and DVDs if you have an external super drive, as it's called, which is the CD, DVD burner drive. The desktop does sync with iCloud if you enable that feature during setup or at any time, which means if I do store something on my desktop, I will be able to access it on other devices, even iOS devices, through the Files app. Yeah, that's all that's on the desktop. So the most immediate question, I think, becomes, how do we launch our apps? We could explore the desktop. We can explore all these things, and we will. But I think that it's more important to talk first and foremost about how do we launch our apps. Well, there's a couple ways. All right. Again, you still can go into the applications folder for those who are familiar with it, but that's not what I would teach first and foremost. A lot of people, especially a lot of voiceover users, tend to like to use the dock to launch apps. And that's okay to some extent, but it does have its caveats, which I'll explain to you in a moment after I explain what the dock is. The dock is a place where you can find, just if you're familiar with the iPad and even the iPhone, you already know what the dock is. It's along the bottom of the screen, you have this bar of the most common apps that on iPhone and iPad, they're the same on every single page, right? Messages, Safari, music, whatever you can put your own things down there. And on the iPad, the dock is split into two sides. It has your favorite apps that you put there or that Apple put there, and then it has your suggested apps on the right side, either recently used or otherwise. Well, on Mac OS, it's the same thing. You can put different apps on the dock. Apple puts some there for you. And when you access these, they're just a click away. And there is a shortcut that voiceover users can access, which is VOD. In other words, Control Option D, or Caps Lock D, as in dock. And it brings you right to the dock. And so then you can just VO arrow through all of the apps that are on the dock. And again, Apple puts some of the most common ones there that they think you'll want to use: Safari, App Store, Mail, Messages, FaceTime, Music. They have a whole bunch of apps. On the right-hand side of the dock, you also have folders, and these are things like maybe your trash, your documents folders, different things like that. And again, all of this can be customized. There's nothing that's set in stone here. All of this can be changed by the user. You can add things to the dock. You can delete things from the dock without removing them from your Mac. All right. It's just the quick access from the dock that you'd be removing. You ultimately come back to, there's got to be yet another way to access all of my apps. And there actually is. Now, there's really more than one way. When we get into more advanced stuff, we'll let Trainer Cliff tell you how he launches his apps. It's not a day one kind of thing, but he will tell you, and he'll explain that to you as we progress through this. But there's one way that does give you access to every app that you have without opening the folder on the Macintosh HD, and it is the Launchpad. The Launchpad is the way that I prefer to access my apps. VoiceOver users, you can access it from the dock for sure, but you also can simply press, if you have it, the F4 key on your Magic Keyboard or whatever keyboard you have. Siri, we will also talk about in a little bit, but you do have full-fledged Siri on your Mac, just like iOS. So that would also, when we talk about opening apps, that's another way to open apps. Hold down that command space and then say launch, whatever, or open, and you can do that among, of course, millions of other things with Siri. And so that's, that's all stuff we're going to cover. Once you're in this Launchpad with the press of the F4 key, it already interacts you with the grid of apps. And so all you need to do is VO left arrow, VO right arrow, whatever, find the app you want, and then VO space to open it. Or if you're using a trackpad, of course, just swipe to the left, to the right, double tap to open an app. If you have switched the functionality of your function keys, if you've turned on that setting that says use all F1, F2, etc. as standard function keys, that F4 is not going to work unless you also hold down the FN key, okay? Again, the Launchpad has all of your apps. They're in a grid. You just find the app you want and double tap or VO space. That is, a very quick overview of how to open apps.
I hate to say this, but there's one more way, and I hate it because it's so Windows-ish, but it actually works. And it's Command O. That's another way you can order. Yeah, I would be remiss to say if I didn't mention it, because some people coming from Windows just love that extra, that Control O. But yes, Command O will open an app. Just wanted to make sure that we, because there's different ways of doing things, and people, some like some better than others, and some dislike. It's just personal preference.
If you just got a Mac and you just open it up, but you need to get into Messages or Music or whatever you want to launch quickly, you can do a couple of things that I think are the most simple, most efficient ways. One is that a lot of your common apps are on the dock, and again, that's Control Option D. Or if you have a trackpad, you can just two-finger double tap near the bottom of the trackpad. And of course, the other way is the Launchpad. Just press that F4 key if you have one, or if not, open Launchpad from the dock, and you have access to every single app that's installed on your Mac. What apps your Mac comes with? It really does come with a huge selection of apps, and many of them, if you've used an iPhone or an iPad, are going to be very similar. And many of them will even have the exact same features and a very similar setup. Others might have a few additional features, but basically be the same. And so just to give you a few examples, anything you can think of from your, the apps that ship with your iPhone or iPad, Messages, Mail, FaceTime, Calendar, Contacts, Notes, Reminders, all of these types of apps that you get on your iPhone and iPad. Music, TV, news, the App Store. There's no iTunes Store app like there is on iOS because that's kind of integrated into whichever app you're using, like the music app or the, whatever. So it's sort of just all one. But you do have separate apps for music, movies, books, podcasts, just like you do on iOS. There's an Apple Books app, an Apple Podcast app. There's a home app, a news app, of course, Safari, all of the same stuff that you expect. Even calculator, even Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. They come preloaded, pre-installed on your Mac. GarageBand, iMovie, they all come pre-installed. Voice memos. There is not a Clips app at this point for Mac OS, but there is an iMovie app. And then both iMovie and GarageBand have sort of their big brother or big sister versions that are purchasable in the App Store: Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro. All right, these are the more advanced counterparts to iMovie and GarageBand. As I mentioned, you get Pages, Keynote, and Numbers. You're also going to find a few additional apps on the Mac that you won't see on iOS. I'm not going to mention every one of them right now, but I'll mention some of the ones that we often think about when we think of a Mac. One being QuickTime or QuickTime Player. This is an app that allows you to quickly play, record, and edit media files. All right, convert media, trim media, make screen recordings, things of that nature. Another app you're going to find that you won't find on iOS is Preview. And this is a PDF viewer and editor. Allows you to sign documents. It's actually really powerful. And again, the name of that app is Preview. With iCloud, everything is integrated so beautifully. So on the iOS side of things, you have the Files app. On the Mac, it's not called Files, it's called Finder, but it's the same thing. It's a way of browsing, organizing files, sharing files, all those sorts of things. And on the Mac, they call that Finder. Really, even the desktop is a Finder interface, but you can click on the Finder on the dock and open a window, or you can go up to the menu bar. Remember, the menu bar is VOM for menu, or a two-finger double tap near the top of the trackpad. And remember, we shared that there's an Apple menu, and then there's an application menu, and then you get into the specifics like file, edit, whatever. Well, one of the options you'll find in the menu bar in Finder is new Finder window. And so that opens up the Finder and lets you browse wherever you want to browse. There will be a sidebar, and we can demonstrate this later, but, we taught about sidebars and interacting and so forth. Well, there's a sidebar that you can just choose wherever you want to see. Do you want to see iCloud Drive? Do you want to see your Macintosh HD? Do you want to see your documents folder? All of these different places. And if you pick iCloud Drive, you're going to see every folder and every file on iCloud Drive. And there are shortcut keys. Again, we're trying to teach things in such a way that we build up from the ground up and build this foundation first. But, it's hard not to talk about some of the obvious shortcuts sometimes. Like, when you're at the desktop, instead of having to open a new Finder window and then navigate to the sidebar and interact with it and change to iCloud Drive, there's a Mac OS shortcut. It's Command-Shift-I. And if you press that, it will instantly open a Finder window in iCloud Drive. Another app that a lot of folks are using on the Mac is TextEdit. Now, yes, TextEdit actually offers an incredible amount of formatting. When I first got a Mac and I had left the Windows platform, I assumed that TextEdit was very much like Notepad or WordPad on the Windows side, and it's not. It's much more powerful than either of those or both of those combined, but it's still not as powerful as Pages. So when I'm writing something, I'm either going to do it in Notes or Pages. So I don't use TextEdit, but a lot of people do like it, and people who are maybe nervous about Pages feel that TextEdit is, a slightly less overwhelming way to get into the world of writing on the Mac. And it is, because Pages carries with it a lot of extra features for page layout and, things that they may not want to use right away. So it's certainly a viable option for those who want to write. Again, the other downside of TextEdit is that there's no direct equivalent on iOS or iPad OS. Depending on what format you save things in, you'll still be able to open them on iOS.
It's a great app, but if you want continuity, that's not the app to use. Because
Right.
if you create an app document on TextEdit on the Mac, it's going to show up on your phone or your iPad, but you're not going to be able to open it. You're going to have to share it with Pages anyway. So
Right.
I'm not saying it's not a good app, because it's my go-to for some quick stuff. And 9 times out of 10, like if I'm writing a blog post and I want to, fancy it up and then just copy and paste it later, I'll end up putting it in Notes or Pages. But I don't save text edit documents with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to go to my phone later and finish this. No, it has to be in Pages or Notes if you're going to do that. Text
Right.
edit is great. It's more powerful than Word or WordPerfect to me. But it is below Pages because you can't do as much with it. But it is a quick fix. It's something that will let you write immediately. You don't have to pick a template. You don't have to interact a few times with the header or the footer like you do with Pages. I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but TextEdit is just simple. You open up a document and you're ready to write. So
you can also install apps from the App Store. Now, the Mac, unlike iOS and iPad OS, also accepts, apps from anywhere else. You can, download an app from the web, right? And if you trust it, you can install it. There's a couple of apps that Cliff and I are working with that enhance the WebEx experience a little bit, and some of the other things that we do, and that's not in the App Store. So, we just have the file, and we either basically copy it to our applications folder or, install it, and you can do that. That's fine. The Mac has that option. When an app gets approved for the App Store, for one of Apple's app stores, you know that the app is at least safe to install, if nothing else. You also know that it does what it says it's going to do. Now, is it always the best at doing it? Is it always voiceover accessible? Are you always going to like the way it's set up? Those are all questions that come down to personal preference. You have to play with the apps and see. But at least you know that the app is safe. Menu bar. And that is the next component of Mac OS that I want to talk about when we talk about the basics. Because every app has that menu bar. And even on your desktop, you have that menu bar. So I just want to review very quickly that you get to the menu bar with VOM, or a 2-finger double tap near the top. The first menu is always what? The Apple menu. Remember that. Unchanging. That's always there. The second menu is the application menu. It actually takes on the name of whatever app you're using. So if you're on the desktop, it's going to be called the Finder menu. If you're in Pages, it's going to be called the Pages menu. Then you have other menus that are relevant to the app that you're using, like File, Edit, Format, Help, whatever what might be there. We've talked about how to navigate this, but it's important to remember that menu bar, because that's a very important way to work with apps that we don't use on iOS, right? There's no menu bar like that on iOS. A lot of the menu items in these menus do have shortcut keys, and VoiceOver will announce them for you, just like the one we talked about a few minutes ago, Command O to open a document, or Command N to create a new document, those kinds of things. So those are going to be there, and they'll be spoken for you as you look through the menu. Now, there is another set of menus on the Mac, and it's called the stats menus. Now, this is a set of menus and controls on the right-hand side of the screen of your Mac. When you're on the desktop, you'll see these if you can see, and they'll have like a Wi-Fi icon, a battery icon if you've got a MacBook, Bluetooth, that kind of thing. How do we get to these with VoiceOver? And the answer is VOM twice. Okay, we do the VOM 2 times in a row, and that brings us to the status menus. And then you can, again, VO left and right to go from menu to menu, open up the menu you want. And so if you want to connect to Wi-Fi, you got to go to the status menus with VOM, and then you need to choose the Wi-Fi menu. Go
Yours
into
needs
that.
to be unmuted, and there's actually a different way of getting to it. You
There's
actually can do VO shift and the letter O, and that will bring you to what we call the control center.
Well, yes, and actually the control center is one of the options in that VOM. It's one of those options over there, but VO shift O quickly jumps you to the new control center, which kind of has a lot of the same stuff that is in those status menus all put into one place. Just
Exactly.
like on iOS, you have a control center now. So it's got your Wi-Fi, it's got your AirPlay and screen mirror.
And as you guys know, we learn stuff as we teach you guys, and I actually didn't learn that until I actually looked at the keyboard commands that I sent in last week, and I saw that. I was like, I didn't know that.
Right. So you have a control center over there. The other thing you have is a notification center, which you can get to by pressing VO and the letter O without the shift key. And there's going to be all of your notifications in there. And so if you get a notification and it's, a reminder or a calendar alert or a software update alert, you go there and you can interact with these notifications, VO space on them, to open the app. Now, let me point out, just like on iOS, notifications are actionable, which means you can take an action on a notification. And so there is an actions menu available for every notification. How do we get to that? Well, you've learned VO spacebar already, okay? There is a secondary activate option that brings up a list of menus for an item, and that is activated by pressing VO command spacebar. So if you add that command key, it's going to bring up the actions menu for the notification. And speaking of alternate actions, there's one more sort of alternate click that I want to talk about, and it is what Windows users would call the right click. Now, for decades, Apple has not done a right click. They've done a control click. If you want context menus, you control click on something. And that still works to this day. And newer Apple Magic Mice and trackpads do allow you to click on the right side of them to perform an alternate click if you enable that setting. But, of course, there's a voiceover command for this as well. And it's going to be VO shift and the letter M. VO shift M is your alternate click or control click or right click. VO shift M. How do we close an app? I just want to review this again. There are two commands, Command W and Command Q. Command W closes the current window, but typically does not close the app itself. You can have an app open with no windows. Really doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Well, maybe. If the app has to be open to receive notifications for window chooser and application chooser, especially the window chooser, because you can have multiple windows open in the same app and not realize it. Maybe a message window and then a dialog box that popped up but somehow got behind the other screen and you didn't even realize it's there. So, if you want to access all of your open windows, there are other cases besides File Vault 2 where that happens, where a window or a dialog box will appear and people don't realize because VoiceOver isn't telling you that it's there, but somebody who's looking at it says, I can't see your screen. There's this big dialog box there. Or one of the most famous examples that I've seen is the force quit screen. Now, Windows users, I hate to even talk about how things are done on Windows, but Control-Alt-Delete. Well, there's Command-Option-Escape on the Mac, which is the force quit screen, and it allows you to kill apps that are not responding properly or what have you. And if you force quit something, sometimes it'll browse away from that force quit dialog box, and it's still there, and you haven't actually
What
gotten rid of it.
happens more times than not, though, Matt, is they'll say okay, but they won't go back over to the close button
Exactly.
of the force quit, and
Exactly.
it stays up there, and they don't know
And
what's
so,
up there.
but it's not in the foreground for VoiceOver, so
Right.
VoiceOver isn't telling you. So what do? The command for a window chooser with VoiceOver is control. And remember, depending on which way you have your keyboard set, you might need to add the function key here. All right. But control option F2 twice. The first time you press it, it reads the name of the current window. The second time you press it, it gives you the window chooser, and you can VO up and down through whatever windows you have open. VO space on one you want.
Or you
Now,
can double tap on the right side of your trackpad with 2 fingers.
yes, if you have a trackpad, you can double tap with 2 fingers on the right-hand side of the trackpad. The other one is the application chooser, which lets you see all your open apps. And that is a 2-finger double tap on the left-hand side, or control option F1 twice quickly. Again, the first press of it reads the name of the current open app, and the second press brings up the application chooser. I want to add about that, guys.
I was gonna say you can be lazy like Trainer Cliff and just set a commander for it, because all I do is push option D, and it brings up the item chooser for me. But I usually don't use it because I usually know what's open, because I don't like to have more than 2 or 3 apps open at a time. System preferences. To get to system preferences, you can go to the dock. You can go to the Apple menu. You can even go into the applications folder with Command Shift A into utilities, and then go down to system preferences and hit the old space bar. But me, I'm lazy. So I have a commander. So let's launch it.
System preferences window, toolbar.
All right, the first thing you land on when you get, oh yeah, I always forget. Let me turn down the speed on this.
Rate 60%.
And to do that, I hit VO Command Shift, hit the left arrow, and it went to the rate. So I'm going to slow it down by hitting the down arrow.
55%, 50%, 45%.
All right, 45% should be done. Should be good. All right, we're on the toolbar. We could explore what's in the toolbar, but most of you by now know how to get to the toolbar, how to get into it with VO Shift down arrow or the navigation of your choice, whether it's Quick Nav or the VO modifier. So let's VO right arrow.
System preferences.
That's telling you what app it is.
Cliff Miller Sr.
It's telling me that's my name for my Apple ID.
Apple ID, iCloud, Media and App Store.
Yep, so if I interact there, that's what I'll find, everything it just said.
Image. Apple ID. Family sharing.
I have family sharing over, so that's a tab in here. If you don't have family sharing activated, you will not see this.
Preference panes.
Now, preference panes. If I had my hands on, let's see what it would say.
You are currently on the scroll area. To begin interacting with the contents of this scroll area, press Control, Option, Shift, down arrow.
All right, I don't have my hands turned on, so I read the help tag so you could hear. So I'm going to interact with this, or you could push the tab key, whichever is your choice.
In Preference, General.
Now, before I go through these preferences, I just want to point out a few things. These things are grouped by category by default. If you so choose, you could go into the menu bar and look for the view menu and sort it alphabetically. But as it stands now, they're grouped by categories, where the system, Apple ID, or whatever the case may be. So let's see. The first one is general.
Desktop and screensaver.
Desktop and screensaver. That's where you'll adjust what picture you want to show, whatever that nature. Maybe in another session, we'll go into each individual option, but right now I'm just showing you what's in here.
Dock and menu bar.
Dock and menu bar. That's where you're going to find a lot of stuff. Accessibility, spoken content.
Mission control.
Excuse me, mission control. I think that's a visual thing. I've never used it, never played with it, never had anybody talk about it, so I really couldn't tell you what it does.
Desktop and screensaver. General.
I just
General. Desktop, dock and menu. Mission control.
Mission control.
Siri.
Siri, of course, we all know what that does. You can go in there, set it up, say, hey, we'll do with this.
Spotlight.
Spotlight, assuming you can go in here and change the settings, the shortcut key on what you have, launch Spotlight, whatever the case may be. By default, it's Command Spacebar.
Language and region.
Language and region, I'm assuming this is location services. You go in there, set your region, where you're located, all that good stuff.
Notifications.
Notifications. We're definitely going to visit this one down the line. This is where you can go to adjust your notifications on how you want to see them. Do you want it to be continuous? Do you want a banner? Do you not want to hear it at all? Do you just want it in the background? Do you want it even to alert you at all? So this is where you can adjust those. Also on in Monterey. Also Monterey focus is in here. Same as do not disturb, but a whole lot more options.
Internet accounts button.
Internet accounts. This is
You
where
are
you'll
currently
set
on the
up. And he's reading my. Why is it reading my? Whatever. I'll let it read it.
Button inside of the scroll area. To click this button, press Control Option Space. To stop interacting with this scroll area, press Control Option Shift Up arrow.
All right, that's the last time I let him read that. I don't know why it went off. Like my verbosity changed or something. Anyway, what is it again?
Internet accounts button.
Internet accounts.
You are currently.
This is where you would set up your email accounts, whether it's iCloud, Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, whatever. This is where you would go into to set that up, internet accounts. I think you also do your calendar and contacts in here with those specific accounts.
Wallet and Apple Pay button.
Wallet and Apple Pay, pretty self-explanatory. Wallet, you can see all your saved credit cards. Select if you want Apple Pay to work on your Mac.
Touch ID button.
Touch ID. Now, this is only going to apply to you if you have a M1 MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, or a 24-inch M1 24-inch iMac, or an iPad or a MacBook Pro or MacBook Air, 2018 or newer. Don't quote me on that. Look, I don't know it all. Trust me when I tell you. But this is where you would go in to set up Touch ID if you didn't set it up at startup or when you open up your new Mac.
Users and groups button.
Users and groups. This is where you would go. This is where you would go to set up or to look at your settings for your specific user account on your Mac. So if you wanted to change your password, change the settings that you have programs to start up when you turn on your Mac, and this is also where you would set up VoiceOver to come on at startup.
Accessibility button.
Accessibility pretty much speaks for itself. VoiceOver utilities are in here, along with other stuff specific to speech, screen recognition, stuff like that.
Screen time button.
Screen time. This is where you go in.
On the button.
You go in here to adjust your screen time, whether it's for you or your kids. This is those settings on the Mac.
Extensions button.
Extensions. Some programs require an extension to work on your Mac, so this is where you would go and manage them.
Security and privacy button.
Security and privacy. This is where you would go give apps permission that are not from the App Store to run on your system. Also where you would set up File Vault if you didn't do it already, or if you want to disable it. Also giving calendar apps like Zoom and WebEx permission to use your microphone and webcam.
Software update button.
It's pretty self-explanatory. Software update. This is where you would go in to update your Mac, whether it be for your operating system, Monterey Big Sur, or you want to enable automatic updates. You can go in here and tell it to install them in the background for pages, text edit, whatever the case may be.
Network button.
Network. This is where you go in and manage your router, your Wi-Fi, look at your DNS, all that technical stuff if you know all about that.
Bluetooth button.
Bluetooth. This is where you would go to connect a Bluetooth device if it's not already connected by your Apple ID, whether it's Beats, AirPods, Bluetooth keyboard, whatever the case may be. You can go in here, connect, disconnect, or make it forget. even your mouse or trackpad.
Sound button.
Sound. This is where you would go in and figure out why the sound's not coming out of your headphones, speaker, or whatever the case may be, microphone. And if you can't hear your sound effects on your Mac, this is also where you would go to make sure it's coming out the right audio source.
Printers and scanners button.
Printers and scanners. This is where you would go to set up a new printer. If you got a printer on Wi-Fi or it's plugged into your Mac, you go in here to figure out if you want to share it, rename it, do all those other types of things.
Keyboard button.
Keyboard. This is a very important one. This is where you would definitely check out the keyboard stuff. There's shortcuts. You can set up custom shortcuts. You also set up dictation in here, and whether your spell check is universal on all your apps across the board.
Trackpad button.
Trackpad. I don't have one connected. But this is where you would go to adjust those settings, whether you want to do work or not work, be on or off, this, that, and the other, the sensitivity, the pressure, all that good stuff.
Mouse button.
Mouse, same
You are
thing.
currently on.
Go in here and see if you want it on or off. Use it, swipe, sensitivity, stuff like that.
Displays button.
Displays. This is where you would adjust the brightness, put it on a schedule, have it shut down at a certain time. You know, I can set my screen to go dim after an hour or to go to sleep after 3 hours. So this is where you adjust those settings.
Sidecar button.
Sidecar. This is side loading apps from your phone. Basically, jailbreakers use this. I think you need to get some Android apps to run on your Mac, but something I've never done and never plan on doing. If it ain't Apple, I don't want it.
Battery button.
Battery. This is where you can go in and adjust the battery or check the battery, I guess, and let it know when you don't want it to charge and not charge and stuff like that.
Sharing button.
This is sharing. This is where you would be able to see everything that's on your network and what you want to share with it.
Time machine button.
Time machine. This is a built-in backup for the Mac. You have to have an external or server connected to your network in order to use this. You can't, but Apple or this program it basically backs up your system every time you make a change. And it's a good idea to use external USB drive that is the same size or more of your machine, because it will back up every time you make a change. It doesn't matter if you delete an app, install an app, remove an internet account, it will back it up. You can set it to do manual, which is what I do, but I actually use a third-party app called Time Editor. Might talk about that a little bit down the line here.
Startup disk button.
Startup disk. This is for those who run multiple operating systems. You would go in here to pick what system you wanted to start up with when you restart your computer.
Mac2022 button. Mac2022 button.
And that's a third-party extension that works with another cloud service. Now, let's go explore this menu bar.
Menu bar. Apple.
It's the same thing as usual.
Your system preferences.
You see how I did that? It says system preferences. That's the app that I'm in. That's why that's there. Edit. You know the commands.
View.
Now let's go down
View.
here.
Menu 40. Back. Dim command. Left forward. Show all preferences. Command L. Customize ellipses. Checkmark. Organize by categories. Organize alphabetically.
Now that's the thing I was telling you about, where you can organize by category or by in alphabetical order. And you heard it said mine is organized by category. But let me go up here.
Checkmark or customize ellipses. Show all preferences. Command L.
Command L. So that means wherever you are in your system preferences, whether you're all the way at the end, in the middle, or whatever, if you hit Command L, it's going to take you back to the complete list, no matter what preference you are in.
Customize. Checkmark. Organize alphabetically. Search Command F.
You can search Command F.
You are currently on
it gives you the shortcut for that.
Accessibility.
You can get right to it without even having to look for it.
Apple ID.
You get to your Apple ID in this menu.
Battery.
Look at your battery in this menu.
Bluetooth
in this menu.
Date and time.
Desktop
and screensaver.
Looks like it's just giving you a list of everything that you can do in here. That's in system preferences. That you can do in system preferences. It's just putting it in the menu bar, so you don't have to
help menu to use search result.
Use the first letter navigation or interact with the toolbar. So that's good to know.
Window menu 5 items. View menu 41 items.
So that is system preferences.
I would like to take a look at a couple of these apps, and I'd like to start with messages. So I'm on my desktop.
Lacy volume.
Is that too loud? Not loud enough?
No, it's fine.
That's
Okay.
good.
That's the desktop. I only have one item on it. It's that external backup drive, as I told you. It's called Lacy because that's the product, the manufacturer. As you know, I have my track. Well, you don't know. I have my trackpad commander enabled. I can use the keyboard.
Lacy
Here's my
volume.
trackpad. And this is the desktop. Now, the quickest way, again, personal preference here. All right. So I'm just going to do things the way I would do them. And anybody else that does a demo is welcome to, chime in and do the way they would do them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the launch pad. And I'm just going to press F4. And it's going to open up.
In App Store, content is empty. App Store. System has new window.
Now,
You are currently on a button inside of a grid. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space.
all right, I'm not going to let every one of those hints read every time, but I did want to remind you of those hints. I told you the other day how verbose they are, how thorough they are. I am not going to spend time flicking or arrowing through this launch pad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type the first few letters of what I'm looking for. There's a big difference between the way that Windows handles first letter navigation and the way that Apple products handle first letter navigation. With Windows, I'm looking for messages, okay? In Windows, if I have several different apps that start with an M, I repeatedly press the letter M, and it moves one item at a time through the M's. On Mac OS, that is not what happens. On Mac OS, you type the first letter and then the second letter of the word or the third letter, and it narrows it down to things that start with those letters. So in this instance, if I type MES, I should land right on messages. So right now I have access to my entire Launchpad.
Safari, Mail, Contact, Mix of App Store.
Okay. But if I type MES,
Messages, Application, Window.
it narrowed it down.
Insertion edit.
And you look, if I go to the right,
Messages,
left,
Messages, Message.
there's nothing else I can choose because I've already narrowed it down to the MES stuff, and there's only one thing that starts with MES in my Launchpad, and it is messages. So if I now VO space or double click with the trackpad, or double tap rather.
Finder, Desktop, Lacy Image. Actions available. You are currently on a volume. To open Messages, Cliff iMessage window. Message edit text is editing has keyboard focus. You are currently on a text field. To enter text in this field, type.
Okay, so as I said, I've used messages on the Mac a handful of times in Big Sur, and that's literally it. Almost never. As a matter of fact, a lot of times when I'm even sitting at my Mac, I also have my phone beside me, and if I get a message, I answer it on my phone instead of the Mac. Isn't that funny? So what we're going to be seeing here is we're going to be seeing me explore this app. Really and truly, I have an idea because I've looked at it a few times. I'm not coming at it totally clueless, but I'm going to explore this app. So I hear that I'm in an edit field right now. I'm going to logically assume that is the edit field where I can type a message to whoever is selected, because I don't typically delete my conversations. And so I know that I have a lot of conversations in here. And I think it even said Cliff iMessage. So apparently last time I did respond to somebody or talk to somebody from the Mac, it was him. And that makes sense because I was doing some stuff on the Mac the other night and asking him about it. So maybe that's where that came from. So the first thing I will do, and I think what we're really going to learn here is hopefully, a masterclass in exploring new apps so that you can do this for yourself. That's my goal here. So the first thing I would do, this being me, I want to make sure that I'm not interacting with anything. Okay. Because I want to get an outer view first, an upper level view. So it's just me. And I think I already know that I'm not, but I'm going to check. So what I'll do is a VO shift up arrow, or I'll do a 2-finger swipe to the left on my trackpad, either way. And what we'll find is nothing. I am as high as I can go. The next thing I'm going to do is go as far to the left as I can. And because I prefer to look at my apps from left to right, I'm not even going to give VoiceOver time to announce each thing. I'm going to go as far as I can to the left until I hear that classic boundary reached sound. I'm not going to wait and see what all is there because I want to go left to right. So I'm just going to move quickly.
Vertical close button.
Okay.
You are currently on a button.
All right. And I pressed Control to stop that. You know that Control starts and pauses and resumes the speech. It's a close button. And that's very typical of a Mac app, is that you're going to have the close button as far to the left as you can go. And it will close the current window of the app. It is equivalent to your Command W. It's not necessarily that it's going to quit the app. For that, you may need Command Q. But it is going to at least close the current window of the app if I double tap it or VO space on it. Now, of course, we also know there's going to probably be a menu bar worth looking at, but I'm not going to look at that yet. I'm going to look at the app itself in the foreground first. So again, that first icon is the close button. Now I'll just
Close button.
I'm going to swipe to the right with one finger on my trackpad to see what the next item is. I could also VO right arrow. But
Sir,
okay. So again, there we go. My trackpad was just. I wonder, you know what it is?
Toolbar.
I see what's going on. Okay.
All
right, here we go. So close is the first item.
You are currently on a button. To click this button, minimize button.
All right. The next button is minimize.
This button,
and I'll stop that speech
the
there.
Window.
That minimize button, as it says, it minimizes the current window, puts it on the bottom of the screen on the dock, and we're going to not worry about that right now.
Full screen button.
There's a full screen button.
Available. This button also has an action to zoom the window. You are currently
Did you guys hear that? Let me let it read that again. A flick to the left and back to the right.
Minimize the full screen button. Actions available. This button also has an action to zoom the window. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control Option Space. To zoom the window, press Control Option Command Space first to bring up the action menu.
Do you hear all that? So this is why it's so good to have your hints on, because this is a full screen button. It truly does take the app full screen as if it were an iPad app or something like that. But you also have this alternate action to zoom the window, which again is probably not something a voiceover user is going to need to worry about much. But if I did want to do it, I could VO Command Space to bring up the actions, the alternate actions, and then I can choose that. All right, we're just going to keep going to the right.
Toolbar. You are currently on a toolbar. To interact with the items on this toolbar, press Control Option Shift down arrow.
Or I can two-finger swipe to the right, which is the way I'll do it. And I want to see what's in this toolbar because it's here. It must be for some reason. So let's interact with it.
Toolbar. 2 items. Compose button.
Far to the left.
Compose button.
What's next?
Just to stop you real quick, that's definitely a change from Catalina to Big Sur. That's why we wanted you guys on Big Sur. Catalina does not, and I repeat, does not have a toolbar in the Messages app.
Okay, that's interesting. See, I didn't even know that. All right, so
Conversation details button. You are currently.
Okay, so there's 2 buttons in this toolbar, just like it said.
Inside of the toolbar.
Okay, 2 buttons in this thing, just like it said. Compose, which, starts a brand new conversation, and conversation details button. So I imagine, I mean, I haven't looked at it, okay? As I said, I hardly use this, but I imagine that's going to be where if I wanted to, like on iOS, you could name the group conversation or do a group FaceTime if it's a group, or if it's an individual, you can still, FaceTime them or call them or add them to your contacts, get their location info, share, all that stuff. I imagine that's where that's going to be. I can't say that 100% certain, but I can. You can. Okay.
And that's exactly what it does.
Okay. All right. So there you go. So that's inside the toolbar. If you want to do that. Now, there may be a shortcut key or something. I don't know, but that's definitely one way to get to it. It's in the toolbar. So we've looked at both of the items inside this toolbar. So we're going to
out of toolbar.
Stop interacting. And I just did a 2-finger swipe to the left, or I could have done VO shift up arrow. All right. So we know there's a toolbar. We want to go past it now. We're out of it. We're outside of it. So we're just going to keep going to the right.
Search text field. Search.
Okay.
Search. You are currently on the text field.
I could type. I'm not going to, but I could search there. And we're going to see what is next.
Tool search. Conversations collection. Selected. Cliff. It won't let us in. Friday. You are currently on a collection. To interact with items in this group, press Control Option Shift down arrow.
Okay. It said conversations collection. So this is my whole list of conversations. This is where I could switch from and view all of the existing conversations that I have. And I'll just demo a little of that for you. I'll interact with it. You have to interact.
In conversations collection, selected, Cliff.
I have a lot of conversations. All right, so we're not going to spend much time with this, but I can flick left and right, VO left and right, whatever, and I can.
Megan Wizzle, the cousins, maybe Debbie Downey, +1518, Jessica Clore, 7005, Adam Hall.
All right, and these are just all my conversations. Okay, now let's make sure I'm on an iMessage. That's not an iMessage. I know that for a fact.
Jessica and Rick, yep. Jessica, Corey, Mary Jo Hartica, +1. Gail Green.
Let me go back to
plus
see if my
Jessica plus 98,000.
Okay.
746 89,000. Cindy Huck. Stephanie Jones.
There's Trainer Steph. Okay. A lot of conversations, and I imagine since I'm using iCloud messages, guys, my pinned messages are going to be reflected here, correct?
I would think
Yes.
they should. I would think they will.
They should.
Yes, they will.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right. I thought I remembered that, but I just wanted to. Okay. So I'm on a conversation. It doesn't matter. So now what I'll do is I will stop interacting because I want to see what else is there. I wouldn't be surprised if the voiceover jump command, VOJ, would work. I would have to guess that would move me automatically to either to the conversation itself or to the edit field where I can type. I don't know. I've not tested it. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to stop interacting because remember, I want to explore the rest of this app. I want to learn the elements of the app. I don't want to take any shortcuts right now. I've got to believe VOJ would move me though, wouldn't it, Cliff?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It would move you directly to the end of the conversation, not to the edit field. And
Okay.
I'll stop there because I don't want to jump too far ahead.
Okay. All right. But it moves you to the end of the. So what there is, and you guys are going to see, and I know this because I have used it a few times, there's a separate table with the actual back and forth text of the conversation. So I'm going to stop interacting with.
Out of conversations collection selected Cliff. It won't let.
And you also heard it say that it is going to. It is out of the conversation collection.
And I want to point out something too here because it used a different terminology here. It said collection instead of table, even though it's the same thing, but it's a collection. So I don't want y'all to be confused. When you interact here in messages, it's going to say messages collection or conversations collection, but it's the same thing. You still have to interact and stop interacting with it.
You don't just VO arrow or flick over to your desired conversation and stop interacting. It's not going to select it. I forgot that, and I thought that it would. And then when I stopped interacting, I heard it say Cliff. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. So if I actually want
on top of that, that's another reason why we have to emphasize that you should be updated, because in Catalina, you did not have to select your conversation before you stopped interacting. All you had to do was go to the name that you wanted, stop interacting, and it would be on that conversation. But like I just figured out, if he didn't select Cindy or Steph, when he stopped interacting with that collection, it was going to stay on the one that was selected, not the one that he was hovered over.
Correct. So I'm going to go back in there and select it just to prove that that's what actually happens. Okay.
Vertical conversation in Megan Wiz selected Cliff.
Now see, I'm clear back at Cliff again because I didn't take the time to do that. So I'm going to pick somebody different, our cousin here, and she does have iMessage also. So we'll see all the options. Megan
Wizzle sent $30 with Apple Pay.
Oh, okay. That was we had dinner together last week, her and her family and us. And so I'm going to VO space on that because that's going to select it now.
Selected Megan Wizzle sent $30 with.
Okay, now I can stop interacting.
Out of conversations collection selected Megan Wizzle sent $30 with Apple Pay.
And
Friday.
There you go. And you can see now that she is selected, and it reads the last message that she sent to me, which in this case was money because we did take out from a restaurant and then they paid us. So that's the last thing that we have in our conversation. Now I'm going to swipe to the right or VO right, doesn't matter.
Vertical splitter.
And let's continue to the right. We should expect to see an actual table containing the conversation because remember, I selected my cousin here in the list of conversations and I heard the most recent exchange, but I haven't actually gotten to the conversation. So we were expecting to see that.
Megan Wizzle, wild_flower04 at yahoo.com.
Okay.
You are currently on a text element.
That's just a text element. It's displaying her name, her Apple ID, and that's all. So we're just going to keep moving.
Megan Whizzle, wild underscore flower
Reading that
04
again,
at
that email address again.
Pop-up button.
Okay.
Actions available. You are currently on a pop-up button. To display list of options, press Control Option Space. To show alternate addresses, press Control Option Command Space first to bring up the action menu.
So what I'm assuming this does is, because I have more than one way of contacting her, a phone number, an email address, probably a couple of phone numbers, really, her home and her iPhone, and then this is probably going to let me choose between which one I'm immediately contacting. That's not something that's quite as readily available on iOS. It is available when you hit compose and you go into you select somebody's contact. There is an expand button to the right of the results that pop up, and you definitely can do that. But this is a little bit different. It's kind of more front and center here in Mac OS. All right, let's keep going because we're still waiting for what we really want.
Messages collection. You are currently on a collection. To interact with items in this group, press Control Option Shift down arrow.
And let's go again.
Apps button.
Okay.
Messages collection.
So very interesting. Listen to the terminology here. Messages collection. Okay. It's not. Remember, what did it call the last one? Conversations collection, right? Because if we're really being technical here, all right, semantics, our conversation is the entire back and forth. Messages are each individual message in the thread or in the conversation. So you don't want to forget that terminology. The conversation list or conversation collection lets you pick different people you've talked with. The messages collection will be the actual.
In messages collection.
So this is I've interacted with this and I can arrow. There's a, I thought I could arrow. Why not?
Apps button. Messages collection. You in messages. Heading Friday 10:45 p.m. Megan Whizzle 10:45 p.m. group. Actions available. You are currently on a group inside of a collection. To react, press Control Option Command Space first to bring up the action menu. To interact with items in this group, press Control Option Shift down arrow. To exit this group, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
Let's not interact yet. Let's just keep going. Okay,
Heading.
that was it. So let's go ahead and interact.
In Megan Whizzle, completed transfer of $30.
Okay,
Complete.
that just shows me that. Let's stop interacting and go to the left. Now, when we stop.
Out of Megan Whizzle 10:45 p.m. group.
Okay, you notice I'm still in the conversation with her, but I'm out of that 10:45 p.m. transaction specifically. So let's go to the left now.
Heading Friday 10. Megan Whizzle OK 7:06 p.m. group. Action.
Even that one is a group. If we interact.
In text. Text. OK.
We can more specifically read the text of it. I can read it by character with the rotor, or I can add a shift key, VO shift right arrow.
Text. OK.
That's actually not going to work. Or I guess I'd have to interact another level. But you see, what I'm in is just that one exchange.
Text. OK.
If I stop interacting and go to the left again.
Out of. Heading red. Your iMessage. Everything is ordered, but they are extremely busy and they need 45 minutes. We will be over after that. Yes to the sleepover at this point. 7:06 p.m. group.
Okay.
Actions available. You are currently on a group.
That's my message to her. If I go to the right, it shows me it was red.
Heading red Friday.
And then again.
You are currently on Megan Whizzle. OK 7:06 p.m. group.
And it told me if I want to react to any of these, I can VO command space.
Actions menu 6 items.
If I go down.
Copy. Reply. React. Press. Show menu. Jump to iMessage. Message edit text is editing.
Okay, so
Jump.
all of those things, I'll escape out of that.
Megan
I can copy that. I can react to it, which is like where you have your heart or your thumbs up or your, those kinds of things. Now, I'll stop interacting here.
Out of messages collection.
And let's go to the right.
Apps button.
There's
You are currently on a button. To click this button.
Okay. There's our apps button, which we know is our iMessage apps, things like our Digital Touch and Apple Pay and all those things on the iPhone and iPad. And we have apps here on the Mac as well.
iMessage message. Edit text is editing.
That's where.
You are currently on a text field.
Okay. That's
Message
where we.
collection.
Sorry about that. That's where we type the message that we want to send. That's our message edit field. And that's where
Record audio, iMessage message, edit text is editing.
we can type the message and press return, or there will be a send button, but right now it's not. It's a record audio button because there's no text in it, just like iPhone and iPad.
Record audio button. Activate to start recording audio. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control Option Space.
And I've not tried recording audio in this fashion on the Mac. Can anybody comment on whether you have to hold like you do on iOS, or do you just click it and then click it again when you're done?
The latter.
Okay. All right. So you don't have to hold it like you do on iOS. You just VO space or double tap, make your recording, and then repeat the same command. And then let's see where we're at here. Okay.
Emoji picker button.
There's an emoji.
You are currently on a button. To click.
And that's it. That is it. The emoji picker.
It is important to make sure that you always listen to voiceover. He or she, whatever voice you have, is going to tell you exactly what to do.
And this time, what I'm actually going to do, just because I want to teach you another command here, and that is that VOJ that we were talking about. Now that I've shown you, you can stop interacting and move over to it. I'm going to also show you that a lot of times when you have multiple elements, like multiple tables or a message list and then the actual message, you can Control Option J from one element to the other. So I'm going to give that a try and see if it does what Cliff said it would.
In Messages collection, Rita Howells just was able to go back and copy the week's link for today's meeting.
And fortunately or unfortunately, Cliff was right, whichever way you want to look at it. So that's the most recent message in that conversation, the main instructor chat. It's from Rita. So I'm going to stop interacting here.
Out of Messages collection, Apps button, iMessage message, edit text is editing.
And I'm going to go ahead and compose a message to the main instructor chat, just saying this is a test.
Space, period.
I can read that back.
iMessage. This is a test. Insertion at end of text.
So what I did there, because I just wanted to read the whole thing, is I just VO left arrowed away from it and then VO right arrowed back to it, or flick left. So what I can do is I can use normal editing commands, which we have not taught you yet, but you may be familiar with them from iPad keyboards if you're already familiar, or iPhone. So I can, for example, use
Or on the trackpad. Can't you go by word and stuff on the trackpad?
Well, you can set the rotor to characters or words and read that way as well. And you can use, like, for example, your arrow keys,
On word.
just without the VO command, just left and right arrow to read by character.
S-E-T space A space.
That's going to the left. If I go back to the right.
Space A space T-E-S-T period.
All right.
Period.
And if I want to, there's so many others. It's not really, it's not really on the agenda for today, but I'll go ahead and talk about a few of them. You can, if you add the Option key and move left or right with the arrows, you have word by word.
Test A is this. This is a test.
Okay. If I press Command left arrow,
This.
takes me to the very beginning of the edit field. Command right arrow.
Test. Period.
Takes me to the end of that line. And command let me see.
This.
Yeah.
Test.
Command left and command right are the beginning and the end of the line. Command up and command down are the beginning and the end of the entire.
And you can also go by word by doing Option right and left arrow.
Here's something we need to discuss, because we do talk about it with iOS, but I kind of take for granted that people know it on the Mac, but you may not. Again, there is a very big, it seems subtle, but it's a significant difference between editing in Windows. When you use the arrow keys in this fashion, with or without the Command key or the Option key rather, and whatever, you are going to be hearing VoiceOver announce the character or word or whatever that the VoiceOver cursor and the insertion point are passing over. The same is true when you pass by characters here. Let me demonstrate. We'll go to the beginning with Command left arrow.
This.
Now I'm going to move to the right.
Cap T. Message received from Rita.
And I just got a message.
Cap T.
All right.
Cap T.
There's a T. My insertion point is to the right of the letter T. But if I press the left arrow,
Cap T.
It says T again because my insertion point is now to the left of the letter T. So if I type something else now, it's going to go before the letter T. If I go to the right,
Cap T.
it still says T because now it's moved across that. The insertion point is just to the right of the T. Whatever I type is going to appear after it. Let's go to the right again.
H I S space I S space A space.
Okay, I'm just to the right of the space that precedes the word test. If I go to the right one more time, I'm going to hear a T.
T
Now, if I go back to the left,
T
my cursor is just to the left of the T, and I can type the word good. This is a good test.
G D
Space.
space
Now, if I go to the right,
T.
there's my T. So now if I read this edit field
Emoji pick iMessage. This is a good test. Insertion on word test.
and see,
Between characters T and E. Message edit text is editing.
and it even,
You are currently on a text field.
all right,
To enter.
it even, just like iOS, it even tells me where my insertion point is, and I can just press return.
This is a good test.
And this
Like
is what we
multiple
Yeah.
lines of
Yeah, that
text.
has to be Option plus the Enter key.
And you have to add
Right.
the Option key. That same thing is true on the iPad. If you use an iPad keyboard and you press return in
and the iPhone.
messages and the iPhone as well. If you press return in a messages edit field, it's not going to put a line. It's going to send it. There's one other thing in this app that I could look at. I mean, there's a lot of other things. I could look at the apps with the apps button and all that stuff. But if I'm exploring the layout of the app, there's one other thing I didn't look at, and that is the menu bar. You know, if we're doing any exploration of a new app, any good, look around that an app is going to, at some point, require us to look at the menu bar, right? And what we'll have is this menu bar.
Menu bar Apple.
Now, remember, I told you the Apple menu is ubiquitous. It's always there no matter where you are. That's always going to be the first menu. If I want to open it up, I can VO down arrow or just down arrow or VO space on it.
Apple.
Here's the actual hint.
Character palette. Characters.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Message.
Okay, listen to the actual hint.
Menu bar Apple. You are currently on a menu bar item. To open this menu, press Control Option Space.
So technically, they're keeping it consistent. They're just telling you VO space to open it. If I want to go to the next menu in the menu bar, I can VO right arrow.
Messages.
That's the
You are
one.
current.
That's going to have the app options. Let's see what those are. We'll open that up. So in this menu,
About messages. Preferences ellipsis command comma. You are currently on a menu item. To choose this menu item, press Control Option Space. To close this menu, press Escape.
okay, you heard a lot of good information there. But one of the things you heard is command comma. It said preferences ellipsis command comma. So now I know anytime I'm in messages and many apps actually that works for, I can press command comma to jump to the preferences for that app. Is that a voiceover command or a Mac OS command? And how do I know? It's a Mac OS command, and I know because it doesn't have the VO keys. It just has command. And that's a standard Mac OS command with or without voiceover. You can use it. Let's see what else is in this menu.
Services submenu.
That's a
You are-
sub menu. If we want to open it, we VO right arrow. Not going to bother with that one.
Hide messages command H. Hide others command Option H. Show all dimmed. Quit messages command Q. You are currently on
All
a
right, so command Q, that's our quit. Now, let's escape.
closing menu iMessage.
And let's go back to the menu bar and see what else is in it besides the Apple menu and the messages menu.
Menu bar Apple messages. File. Edit. View. Conversations. Window. Help. You are currently
Let's look at just a couple of these. Let's look at file for fun.
edit file. File menu 6 items. New message command N. You are quick look dimmed. Close window command W. Delete conversation ellipsis.
So that's our file menu. Another one that struck me as interesting is the conversation menu. Let's VO right arrow and see what that's about.
Edit view conversations menu 9 items. Show details command I. Show contact card dimmed command Option B. Block person ellipsis dimmed. Send email ellipsis dimmed command Option E.
Now, I'm guessing that some of these are dimmed because I don't have anything selected. I got out of this while we were talking and got back into it. So it's possible that's why.
Send file ellipsis command Option F. You invite to share my screen dimmed. Ask to share screen dimmed. Group FaceTime video. Group FaceTime audio. Group FaceTime.
Okay, there's a
Closing.
lot of interesting options in that conversations menu But now you can see these are not, so I can show the contact,
Block person ellipsis.
block the
You are
person,
send email ellipsis command option E.
send them an
You are
email,
send file ellipsis command option F.
send them a file.
You are
These
current.
are some really cool options, guys.
Invite to share my screen.
They can
You
even
are
share your screen.
ask to share screen.
I don't know how
You are
that works. Never tried it. So that's the menu bar. And there's a lot of consistencies that you'll learn exist across the menu bar in many, many apps, across many apps that you have the same overall menu setups, you know. And when we're finished with this app, of course, we can Command Q if we want to completely quit it.
Do VO function. You have a Mac, yeah, you have a Magic Keyboard. Do VO FN in the right arrow.
Your iMessage. When are you
Okay,
coming
that
back up?
Okay, did that take you to the end of the conversation?
Heading.
It appears that it may have.
Okay, good. I want you to go to a thread from, not a thread, but that same conversation, but not a message from you, but from that person, if it ain't too private or anything.
Okay. Yeah, it's Kylie. I mean, it's just
Kylie.
there's Kylie.
Kylie Alexa Waldrecht.
Okay,
Kind of, but I don't
there's
want.
a message that she sent
Okay,
me.
now you guys know on, I was about to say Windows, my goodness. You know on the iPhone, when in iOS 14, that you can reply to specific parts of a conversation. And I'm about to have Trainer Matt do this, but he's going to do it a different way. He could probably do VO Command Spacebar and it might bring up that option. But what I want you to do, Matt, is hit Command R and see what happens.
Okay. And first, to answer your question, I think it is in that.
Actions menu 6 item copy. Reply.
It is under there with VO Command Space. But
Kylie Alexa Waldrecht. Kind of, but I don't want to wake anyone up.
there's my daughter's message to me from a sleepover. If I press Command R.
Reply. Text. Kind of, but I don't want to wake anyone up. Showing replies. Actions
Now,
available.
you
are
probably
current
don't know it
contact
because you're not familiar with the sounds, but what it did is, one, it told him he was replying to the message, and two, it opened that reply in a new window. Because you heard that little bleep. Yeah, that little bleep was it opening in a new window.
Right.
Once Matt replies, that window will still be open, and there will be an option all the way over to the left to tell it to close conversation, reply thread, or something like that. I forgot what it's called, but.
And there it is. Now, what I had to do was stop interacting with the list of replies.
Dismiss replies button.
There it is. Dismiss replies. That way to take them back to the normal thread.
Dismiss replies button. Hiding text.
Now, I do want to answer this question that I saw from a student about the difference between apps on the App Store and the web and how you find them and stuff. I know we talked a little about this the other day, but just to review and maybe go into a little more depth, there is an App Store on the Mac. It is specifically called the Mac App Store. There is no, let me back up and let me word it properly. It is not the same app store as your iOS app store. All right, let me start with that. They are two different app stores. Now, thanks to these new M1 Macs, which run Apple Silicon, many of the apps that you have on your iPhone will also run on the Mac. But developers still have to allow that, and some developers have chosen not to. So you
and I seen an article today that said how was it worded? It basically said if the developer's app wasn't ready for the Mac App Store, that it was going to be completely blocked.
Many of the apps are, as I said, going to work on both, and sometimes they sell. You know, like with your Intel Mac, if you don't have an M1 Mac, you can still get some of the same apps. I use an app for recipes called Paprika Recipe Organizer. There's a Mac version of that and an iOS version. There's a photo app that our family has, a photo editor called Pixelmator, another one called Affinity Photo. Those both have Mac versions. A lot of apps do have both, you know, and a lot of them are designed to work with each other. Your native apps, Pages, Keynote, and Numbers, you know, and GarageBand and stuff, they're going to work across platform, Mac, iOS. Use iCloud and you'll be amazed how you have everything with you wherever you want it, whenever you want it. But the App Store on the Mac is my favorite way to get apps on the Mac because similarly to iOS, it does have this review process. Similar to iOS, it is very secure. You're not going to get these problems that other apps have because they have to go through Apple's rigorous approval process first. So that's a good thing. And then all the updates, you know, that's a good thing. And family sharing, that's a good thing. And just the fact that I mentioned on last week or the other day that it provides a community, right, of users who review these products, and so that can be positive. So the App Store is a great place to start on the Mac. Now, having said that, unlike iOS, the Mac also accepts apps from third-party sources, and occasionally you need to do that. I try to avoid it whenever I can. Even if it's more costly, I'll buy an app from the App Store before I would get it third party. But once in a while, you find an app like this Loopback app that Trainer Cliff and I were talking about that really does not exist on the App Store and doesn't really have a good App Store equivalent. And this one's just perfect because it's made for voiceover users too. I mean, it wasn't just designed for voiceover users, but they really gave accessibility some serious consideration. Why didn't they put it on the App Store? I don't know. I don't necessarily think the goal is to memorize a set of steps. I mean, yes, sometimes that might be useful. I know that if I want to edit my App Store subscriptions on my iPhone, it's settings, my name, subscriptions. You know, there's some stuff you will just memorize because you get used to it. What you need to understand, when I do things, I don't have this stuff memorized. People think I do because they see me do it so quickly and so fluidly and so confidently. That is the way you are going to have the best experience. We can teach you a list of steps for messages, and you will be great at navigating messages. But what good does that do you when you want to download a song? What good does that do you when you want to send an email? What we've taught you in messages is going to work everywhere. No, there's not going to be a conversations table in the TV app, but there might be a table of TV shows and movies, or, you know, whatever. So these skills, these navigational skills, which is again where the difference between whether we're teaching you app features and functionality versus navigation. And I don't think that they can easily, again, people may have a different opinion, but I don't think they can easily be taught in tandem. You got to kind of know one and then do the other, you know, because we don't say to sighted users, okay, move your mouse to the right. Now slide your finger on, you know, you just don't do that. You say, click on the file menu, and they do it.
All right. No, that's a lot of information. And again, we referenced Big Sur, but we are now on Monterey. Most of the stuff still applies. The things that don't, I will point out along the way. One thing I will point out that Trainer Matt didn't mention is Pages, Numbers, Excel, GarageBand. All that stuff does come on a brand new Mac, but you have to go into the App Store to adopt it, so to speak, to accept it. So they used to cost, but now they're free. But you have to accept them in the App Store to attach them to your Apple ID. Other than that, everything is spot on. Practice, play and pause its recording. Practice makes perfect. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're here to help as much as we can along the way. Again, I'm Trainer Cliff with more with the Mac.